Spring is a fantastic time of year. I've got daffodils all over the place, some tulips over here. Spring bulbs are absolutely great. Now I grow mostly daffodils because the deer, the squirrels, and the chipmunks will come and get my tulips. But for some reason this year I see some over here that were left alone. But if you focus more on the daffodils, or even the smaller spring bulbs, the animals tend to leave them alone. Now the daffodils are toxic, and that's why they're left alone. So I grow about 40 different kinds of daffodils in the garden. But at some point the flowers are finished. And for some of these clumps we're just reaching that point. And so the question comes up, what do you do now? Do you deadhead? Do you cut the leaves back? What should you do with your spring bulbs when they're finished? That's what I'm going to discuss in this program. But before I get there, I want to talk about something else that I'm quite passionate about. A lot of people ask the question, what should I do? Should I cut these back? And that's always the wrong question. That's a sign of a beginning gardener. They want to know what to do. As you gain more experience in gardening, you ask a completely different question. You ask the question, why should I cut these back? Why should I cut the leaves off or not cut the leaves off? How does the plant grow? And experienced gardeners learn to understand the plant so that they can figure out what to do with it. Then they don't need to go with all these rules. I know as a beginning gardener, the rules are easier. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. The problem is there are so many plants. I have over 3,000 different varieties of plants in here. I can't possibly remember the rules for them all. It's much more important to learn about the plants. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Plant Science for Gardeners. It helps you understand how plants grow, and once you know that, you know how to handle them. You know when to prune things, you know when to cut back, you know why you're cutting back, you know how to fertilize and when to fertilize. All of those things become so clear once you understand the plant and the soil, of course. So before I tell you about cutting these back, let's talk about how they grow. And here I'm talking about spring bulbs. These bulbs are dormant over winter, and then early spring they pop up and they grow. They have two goals in mind right now. One is to flower and reproduce, make seed, and the other one is to develop the bulb that's in the ground for next year. Both of those are important to the plant. So now we have a bunch of green leaves growing up. They're photosynthesizing. They're making food. That food is set down to next year's bulb. That's developing a large bulb system underground so that you have more flowers next year. And of course, at the same time, they're flowering because they want to make seeds. That's a plant's whole purpose in life, is to reproduce. Once you understand that, the questions people ask are really simple to answer. Now let's have a look at the specifics, and I'll tell you exactly what you should do with your spring bulbs once they're past their prime. Most of my daffodils are in full bloom right now, and we're looking at sort of the mid-season daffodils. Some of them are early daffodils, like this one here, and it's finished. Beside me here is a tiny little daffodil that's just starting to open up. And over here I have another mid-sized daffodil. It's just showing some yellow on the buds. The buds aren't even formed yet. That's one reason I like daffodils. You get this long season of interest if you pick different cultivars. So your spring bulbs are finished. And this could be any spring bulb. Tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, doesn't matter. The flowers are now finished. They're looking a little ugly. What should you do? Well, the first question people ask is, should I cut this down? Should I cut off the leaves? Now, based on what I just said, the answer is absolutely no. These leaves are photosynthesizing. They're making food for the plant. They're growing a larger bulb in the ground for next year. If we take these leaves away, you end up with smaller bulbs every year, not larger bulbs. And you end up with less flowers, not more flowers. It's absolutely critical you leave these leaves. They have to keep working for you. Now later on in the summer, these will start going yellow. And when they do that, the bulb is telling you, I'm finished with my leaves. I don't need them anymore, and I'm going into hibernation. So feel free to take the leaves off. A lot of spring bulbs have ugly leaves, like the tulips are particularly ugly. Daffodils, not so much. So what some people do is they know that you're not supposed to cut them off, but they got to do something because they don't like the look of this. So what they do is they tie them into knots. Other people braid them. There's some really fantastic braiding going on. Now, that might look good in the garden. Personally, it's not my taste. I like a more natural look, but it's kind of interesting, that braided leaves. But it's not good for the plant. If you tie these up or braid them, they're not working for you. Most of the green is covered, so they're not photosynthesizing. They need to be exposed to that sun coming down. So what do you do with the leaves? You leave them until they go yellow on all spring bulbs. Another question that comes up a lot is, should you deadhead these? Well, again, let's go back and understand the plant. This plant is flowering so it can make seeds, so it can reproduce. The process of flowering and making seeds is really energy intensive. That means it sucks up all kinds of food out of the plant to make these seeds. If we want the seeds, then we should leave the seed head. Let them form seed. But I know most of you aren't collecting the seeds from these spring bulbs, so it means you don't want the seeds. So you should deadhead. And you want to do that as soon as the flower is finished and before the seed pod develops too much. The longer you wait, the more energy has gone into the seed pod. What I like to do this time of year is I just walk through the garden, and if I see a clump like this that's finishing off, I just use my thumb and forefinger, put it right beside the seed head, and get a little snap. And then what do? Well, I just drop it. Mother Nature is going to compost that for me right there and help feed this plant. With a little experience, you can do the two-handed snap, two at once. It's not a big job. Now, do you have to deadhead all of these spring bulbs? No, you don't. I find that about half of my daffodils make seed heads and the other half don't. The more hybridized they are, the more fancy they are. A lot of the doubles, for instance, they just don't pollinate properly and they don't make seed, in which case you don't have to deadhead. Even in this clump, I can see that some of them are expanding below the flower here and the seed pod is starting to develop, and yet there's a couple here that look like they were never pollinated, so they won't develop. You only have to top them if they're making seed pod. If they're not, just leave them alone. For aesthetic reasons, some of you might want to deadhead all of them because it does look a little nicer. But for the purpose of the plant and next year's flowers, you want to deadhead anything that's making seeds. So I hope you learned a lot about spring bulbs here. Some of what I said applies to other plants, but I focus on spring bulbs. If you'd like to learn more about spring bulbs, I have several other videos and you can get to those right here. Happy gardening.